Hey everyone, I am back. I am here for Marriage Boot Camp Reality Stars Family Edition, Season 10, 12. I don't know what it is, but it's episode 2. And it is titled Snake in the Grass. Okay, so the whole idea of that title will come up later on in the episode. But if you're anything like me and you're terrified to death of snakes, then you already knew this episode was centered around the idea of fear. Okay, but before I even dig into it, because it was a really good episode, I just want to remind you, if it's your first time here, subscribe. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your support. Okay, now that I've gotten that out of the way and you check the subscribe button, let me dig right in. Okay, so the episode, of course, we still have like 4 celebrity families. It's titled Snake in the Grass. So they really wanted to play on the idea of fear this episode. Basically saying that fear dictates a lot of our decisions. Whether we decide to combat our fears by facing them head on, and facing those issues we have with our family members, or if we're just like scared to say something to a loved one out of fear of how they're going to react. So there were a lot of major reactions this episode, but the episode started off where it left off with Amber's big blow up. So Amber Portwood from Team Mom OG, remember, her room it looks like a toddler room, like an adult daycare. Her mom, and Matt, her boyfriend, they all have toddler beds or like cribs to sleep inside of. And they had planted like pills and things around the room. Of course, she's a recovering addict. They haven't said it much on this show, but I used to watch, I do watch Teen Mom as well. And her boyfriend, Matt, is actually a recovering addict as well. So that's just not good for both of them. But she reacted, and I guess the purpose of them putting those things in their room was to get a true and honest reaction out of them. And that's exactly what they got. She blew up. She started like putting everything into like a bucket to like throw it away. And then she told them like she's leaving the boot camp. So of course, Dr. V, the woman, she had to come and just like calm everything down because of course, they don't want people going home. But then Amber's like complaining about all the stuff in her room and like, why is it a kid's room? And like, basically she feels like she's gotten the worst room and just blowing up as usual. And Dr. V like straight out tells her like, she asked her boyfriend, like, how old are you? He's 46. Amber is like 20 something years old. Her mom, of course, is probably like in her like 40s. And so she's saying like, you guys all act like you're teenagers. Like, your boyfriend acts like he's 17 and he's 46. You're extremely immature, and all 3 of you need to grow up. And that is why you're in a room that represents immaturity. So, once she spoke logic to them, they understood, and like they're able to go through the process. Okay, so the next day we have all the women in the kitchen, not all of them, but a group of them in the kitchen, and they're like kind of talking about Amber's blow up and how she blew up at Chrissy the night before. And after hearing her story, they pretty much understood her a little bit more. They understood where her anger came from, like with her the history with her mom and her boyfriend. However, they agreed that that's not an excuse as to why she should be able to like lash out at people. It's still unacceptable. Amber actually comes into the kitchen at this time, and they don't hide anything from her. Like, they tell her, like, we were talking about you, which I respected that. They said, we were talking about you, and but we were basically saying, we understand you, but you still can't act like that to people. And she understood, and she basically said, like, she's young, like, she's trying to grow up. But her and Chrissy agreed to, like, start over on a new slate. So that was good. Chrissy is being, like, extremely mature, and you can tell that she really wants to get something out of this boot camp. Okay, so then we have they have their exercise of the day, which is called a Zen Booth exercise, which I'm going to have to look into the price of this because I think all of us can benefit from a Zen booth, like right in our homes. But basically, a Zen booth is like a soundproof booth. So like, it's like a little room that they walk into, and there's a clear door. You can see right outside of it, but it's soundproof. So you walk inside and you're literally looking at your family members standing on the outside, and you are telling them everything that you've ever wanted to tell them, but you were scared to tell them, and you're just being open and honest. But you're the only person that can hear. They can't hear. But it's therapeutic for you because you got it off your chest to the person's face. They actually haven't heard you. And maybe it's just a step in the right direction to give you the courage, combat that fear, give you the courage to be able to say it to them. So they felt like, oh, okay, this is a safe space. The person's not even allowed to, react to me because they don't know what I'm saying. And if they're not reacting, we're not arguing. So, basically the instructors told them that fear keeps them from saying what they really want to say. At this point, Jim is like, he looks high the entire camp, and he's like sitting back and he's like, well, you know what? I ain't really got no problems. And, I expected that from Jim because his character has kind of just been like chill and relaxed, laid back this entire time. Every show I've watched him on TV, he's been like that. Like, it takes a lot to get him revved up. So I really wasn't shocked by Jim in this exercise, but it will affect him later on down the line. I'll get to that. Okay, so anyways, Brandi and her dad go into the booth. I'll go really quick through these. Brandi basically goes in the booth and she's venting because she thinks that when she was growing up, her dad was a drug dealer. And basically it's like this big secret. She thinks that like he used to like grow like drugs in the backyard and stuff like that. And honestly, she's really affected by her childhood. And I think he's a little bit in denial of that, and that affects their relationship. And that may have affected the decision she made later on in life as an adult. When her dad goes in there, he basically says that he thinks this whole modeling thing that Brandi does is about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and he is not here for it, which is interesting when that kind of parallels his life when she was a child. But whatever the case. So they got that off their chest. Then we have Amber. I already knew before Amber went into this booth, Amber is going to have a handful to say. They may as well go ahead and take a break, give her 30, 45 minutes to say what she has to say, because she says everything she has to say even when she's not in the booth, okay? She just doesn't say it in an accepting manner where somebody would actually be able to hear her. But Amber starts complaining about her mom. So this is the first time I heard her say anything about her mom. She starts complaining that $45,000 was missing from her bank account while she was in jail, and her mom apparently was taking this money to the casino. So she's a little salty about her mama there. Basically, I think she's so defensive because she doesn't trust the people around her and the people that are supposed to have her back and love her, and she feels like they have betrayed her in like more ways than one, and she's just like very angry and just trying to hold it all together. Let me see. That was just a quick, like, they didn't show what Matt or her mom said. Then we get to Chrissy and Jim Jones and and Nancy, his mom. So before they even get into the Zen booth, Chrissy is kind of like arguing back and forth with Nancy, Jim's mom, and like people notice this disagreement that they're having, and Chrissy basically says, like in her confessional, like, like I think Nancy wants to understand me, but like she's just incapable of understanding me, like as if they just think totally different. They've lived two different lives. So you could tell that like she's trying to understand. Chrissy tries to understand it from Nancy's point of view too, but Nancy can't quite understand from her point of view at this point. Okay, so Nancy gets into the booth. She says like she doesn't think that Chrissy is family oriented, and there's like some things about Chrissy that she would like to change. It wasn't like major things. Let me see. Jim goes in the booth and he's like, I don't have anything bad to say. And I'm guessing he was in there for like a very short amount of time because the doctors were like, did you get everything off your chest? And he's like, yeah. But he really didn't have anything to say. But I know like deep down inside there has to be more, but maybe he just doesn't want to reveal that on TV because he's been on 2 reality TV shows before. So he probably knows like whatever I say in here is going to be heard by the public. Like, so whatever. So I could see him holding back. Then we have Chrissy. It shows her in there again. She actually starts crying. She's like, okay, so now let's get to Jim. And she immediately starts crying, and like you could tell it's like tears of like frustration and anger and like hurt, and you could look at the hurt on her face, and everybody notices her crying. Jim and his mom have no idea like why she would be crying because they can't hear her at this point. But she basically says like, I've never fought so hard for anything in my life, and she feels that all their lives have gotten better since she's been in their lives, and she shouldn't have to fight with them to prove her worth. And it was a really touching moment, and she even said she didn't mean to go that deep, but hey, she went there, and it'll prove to be effective later on. Okay, so then Renee and her sisters go in there. I mean, they blew up a lot this episode. But just a summary of it, Renee thinks that her sisters don't trust her, and she's mad because one of her sisters painted her to be mentally unstable. I'll get to that in a second. Then her sisters thinks that she's mean and obnoxious, and she isn't accountable for any of her actions. Okay, so after that exercise, of course, they argue. Renee doesn't have a problem saying out loud what she said in the booth. And, like, she kind of, like, goes at them but attacks them. Like, it's her delivery that's all off. They can't even hear her. Dr. V has to come and calm them down. She's basically, like, extremely abrasive and insensitive when it comes to them. But basically, the story comes out that one of her sisters, like, she was, like, in fear of facing jail time, and her parents weren't able to keep her kids, or I don't know if they were alive, I forgot, but the parents wouldn't have been able to keep her kids. Her other sister was in college, and she just told the judge that Renee was mentally unstable, and Renee is like, no, you just used me. I wasn't mentally unstable. You should have just told them that I was on drugs. And I'm like, okay, so if you were on drugs, then at some points, aren't you mentally unstable? But, you know, whatever. She doesn't want to be painted like she was mentally unstable. She was just dealing with some personal issues of her own at the moment. But whatever the case, the story that her and her lawyer came up with, that was able to keep her out of jail so she could stay in her kids' lives. Well, that really affected Renee, and this is why she's so angry towards her sister. But Dr. V was able to calm down the situation, and they haven't gotten to like an understanding just yet. Okay, so then we have Matt and Amber outside. Amber is mad because Matt is quiet, and they argue again. That's normal. Then later on in the evening, they argue again, and the mom is trying to butt in and be like, well, Amber, what I think he's trying to say is, Amber is like, no. You don't even know him, okay? He is a bad person. He's a horrible person because he's a woman beater. He's an abuser. He put his hands on me. And he's like, what are you talking about? She's like, you did. That's why I'm so angry, because you put your hands on me. And I'm like, I've been watching Amber for years on Team Mom before he even came into her life, and Amber was angry before then. She's had a lot of different things to be angry about, but he is not like the primary reason why she's angry. Maybe he's one of the reasons at that point in her life why she was so angry. But in this case, he just continues to deny. Like, she's lying on me. I don't know what that's about. I didn't put my hands on her. I'm not an abuser. But Matt is a pathological liar, so I believe Amber because he just lies with a straight face. Like, it doesn't affect him at all. He'll be like, the sky is not blue. It's clearly purple, and I don't understand why you guys keep lying to me, telling me that it's blue. Like, he's that type of person. So I don't believe a word he says. But they continue to argue, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so then the Graziano sisters, they come and try to comfort Amber because one of them actually was in an abusive relationship before, so she automatically takes Amber's side, and then Amber is just crying, like, I don't understand why I love him so much, yada, yada, yada. And basically, like, it's a toxic relationship, and if it is an abusive relationship, like, there's a cycle in an abusive relationship, and then, like, there's that lovey-dovey, and then the hurt and pain, and then, like, I'm mad at you, and then, like, oh, let's, you know, it's not his fault, and then, like, oh, okay, we're back together. Like, it's a normal cycle. But, like, when people get accustomed to being in toxic relationships, like anything will do. Like, you say sorry, you say, like, you were tired, like anything will do, like, as long as we're still together, because, like, they, like, are, like, attached to them in some type of way, before they eventually get out of it. Okay, but anyways, that point, after that fight, then Judge Lynn Toller of Divorce Court, she is like one of their like greatest resources on this show. She introduces herself to the group and basically tells them like she watches them nonstop. She's been watching them for the past 2 days. She comes and gives them an assessment at the end of the night, but she won't be doing it that night because they have another activity to do. So just introduces herself. So this is when the snakes come into play, y'all. Okay, this is gonna be fast because I don't like talking about snakes because I'm terrified of snakes. But basically, it's a snake exercise. Snakes like locked in a cage. All the families, not all of them, but one family at a time has to come and stand in this like little clear box around the snake box. And they are supposed to tell each other one thing that they said in that Zen booth to face their fear and say it to their family member. And if not, then they're going to open up the snake box and then the fears are going to come at them. So snakes are already intimidating. So that was their way of kind of like scaring them into being honest with their family member. So the Grazianos, they spoke up, the sisters. The Glanvilles, Brandi and her dad, they spoke up and said something. Amber and her mom speak up and both say something, but Matt, I'm not shocked. He decides, like, no, I'm not telling y'all nothing I said in that booth. Like, I'd rather have a snake crawl on me. And that's exactly what happened. They opened it up. The snakes came out and literally started going up his leg. And he was just standing there like, oh, I'm nervous, but, you know, it's a snake. And I'm like, yeah, well, a snake is a snake is a snake. I mean, that's your kind, so you're not affected, you know, so whatever. And then we have the Jones family. So this was like the most touching part because, first of all, this is the only black family there, okay? They had the exact same reaction I would have had, I'm not going to lie. It was Jim, his mom, and Chrissy, and as soon as they open up their eyes, like take off the blindfolds, and they see these snakes there, they was like, oh, no, y'all tripping. Like, they immediately start taking their feet out of these things, and they're like, I don't know what y'all think this is. This is not fear factor. We can do another exercise. I'm out of here. And they start like climbing out of the cage. So like Chrissy just follows suit. She didn't even say anything, but by the time she opened up her eyes, they were halfway out of the little cage. The mom was like, I don't do snakes. Something happened to one of my kids with a snake when I was younger. And Jim was like, I don't do snakes. And they were not about to turn around. He was like, come up with another exercise. So like the counselors at this point are like kind of disappointed. Like, Jim, like you're not being receptive to anything in the camp. And he's like, look, once I feel like you're actually teaching me something or you know what you're talking about, then I participate. But at this point, I don't see no need to participate in any of this because I'm not learning anything new. And then that's when they're like, okay, so let's try this. Then they play Chrissy talking in the Zen booth. And when she said, like, I've never fought for anything so hard in my life, I think that Jim and his mom had problems way before I came around. But I do feel like when I came around, I made all of our lives better. And I shouldn't have to keep fighting to prove my worth. And like when all this is going on, like she's crying, then he kind of starts crying because you see him wipe his eyes and it's like, wow, like, okay, you got me. Okay, I'll participate. And you could tell in that moment, like, he really loves her. Like, he's not trying to act like he's just, like, so hard and too cool for school. He's like, okay, she's affected. Like, if I came here with her and to help our relationship and me and my mom and her, and if it takes for me to simply participate to improve our relationship, then I'm willing to do that. So I thought that was the sweetest thing ever. So although Chrissy felt cheated because she felt like she couldn't verbally express herself to them, she did because they heard the sound, the voiceover. So they did hear her say it. And probably that way of doing it was more effective for them rather than feeling like it's an exercise we have to do and all the other families did it, so you do it. That was most effective for them. So she was kind of like crying back in the room and he felt like, oh, you know, we need to talk. You know, I didn't want it to come to this point, you know, whatever. So I thought that was really sweet. And then, of course, like Matt and Amber, they argue some more. But anyways, hope you enjoyed it. If you're not a subscriber and you got to this point in the video, you may as well subscribe, okay? Let me know what you think by liking, by commenting, and subscribing. Okay, I will see you guys for my next video. Bye.